taking three.
Going for the St. Louis now.
Oh no!
Son of a bitch.
You get your two?
Yeah. Welcome back to the channel, everyone. Thotgor here, of course. Today we're going to take a look at a battle I had in my Amagi. Now this was near the end of January that I had this battle, and it started keeping in line with what we did yesterday as well, taking a look at a battleship replay. So I wanted to show this replay for a number of reasons. Not only did I want to talk a little bit about the history of the Amagi, but also the gameplay, how this unfolds here is fairly interesting. So to set the scene, on this day, I think it was the 26th of January or something, I was playing a number of games and they were all going fairly poorly. They were going fairly poorly for a number of reasons, but most notably was that my team, the teams that I had, just seemed to be very passive. They didn't want to go forward and they didn't want to actually cap points. And you know, I'm slowly working towards my Izumo. It's not a high priority for me, but slowly working towards the Izumo. And you know, I take the Amagi out just to get the 2 times honor, and that's about it. And I wanted the 2 times. So after a number of battles, playing in the Amagi here, all defeats, mostly because of the teams, I wasn't going to have any of this in this battle. So here we go on trap, and we're moving into A, right? Normal A to go into anyway. So a little history on the Amagi here before we actually get into it. The Amagi was one of 4 battle cruisers that were designed for the Japanese Navy. There was the Amagi, the Akagi, I forget the other 2 now. Oh well, there were 4 of them. Anyway, they were laid down in the early 1900s, and then the Washington Naval Treaty came around and limited the size of capital ships, right? So because of this, the Japanese, and because the Japanese signed the Naval Treaty, they were no longer able to finish construction on the Amagi class battle cruisers because they just would have been way over tonnage based on the treaty that they had signed. So there was a clause in the treaty that stipulated that, you know, ships that were currently under construction, the hulls were already made, those ships could be converted to aircraft carriers. And after some further negotiations, the tonnage of the aircraft carriers was increased to 33,000 tons. That meant that the Japanese could then convert the Amagi and the Akagi that they had, you know, under construction at this time, could convert them into aircraft carriers. So the Japanese were okay with that, considering, of course, aircraft carriers were soon to be the most important capital ship in World War II. Anyway, 1923 came around, and there was a massive earthquake in Japan. Yes, now this earthquake didn't destroy the hull of the Amagi, but what it did do is it placed a lot of stress on the hull of the Amagi to the point where the hull was just no longer usable, and so the Japanese had to you know, use it for scrap, essentially, just scrap the whole thing. But the Akagi was still going, so they went ahead and converted the Akagi into an aircraft carrier as opposed to a battlecruiser. And the Akagi, of course, is famous because she was one of the aircraft carriers that took part in the attack on Pearl Harbor, and then, of course, later at Midway, met her untimely fate. So that's just a little bit of history there about the Amagi. Because I know a lot of people in the game will say that, oh, she was a paper ship and she never actually sailed and all this. Somewhat true. In a configuration as a battle cruiser, no, never sailed. Basically, I'm not going to call it a paper ship, but basically, you know, just never sailed, right? But she did actually, you know, she was actually under construction, and the hull did actually sail. So I don't think it's a paper ship, because the hull really actually did go out there and fight in battles, but in terms of battle cruiser configuration, yeah, it never actually took place. Anyway, moving into the battle, we can see that, you know, now we're in position at A to start capping. The enemies have already taken B. There is no one up at C, so we can assume that there's most likely going to be an enemy destroyer up there capping that shortly. So things didn't look to be going too well. Keep in mind what I had said at the beginning on how I had played a number of battles this day, and they were all defeats because the team was playing very passively. So I wasn't going to have any of this. You'll notice that I am right up here in front. I'm in A, and I'm contesting A, right? We've got all these enemy ships off in the distance, so I'm just going to start laying any shots that I can into them, trying to do as much damage as possible to push these guys away, right? You'll notice that my team is cowering behind me. Yep, they're not really interested in getting in here into the fray, so that kind of sucked, but I'm getting really lucky here. And this is part of the reason why, because I do really like this Amagi. I think this is a great battleship, and the reason why, well, battle cruiser, the reason why I love the Amagi so much is its maneuverability. When, you know, I'm not a traditional battleship player, so I don't just slowly lurch up to a target, throw the ship into a reverse, and then, you know, shoot my main guns forward off the enemies. I don't do that. I really maneuver around a lot on the battlefield. Now this obviously can go one of two ways, right? One is that you're maneuvering around and things are going fairly good like they are now. You're able to dodge shots. But then the sort of downside to that is that most of your guns are never really aimed at the target you want them to be aimed at. What I've been doing to mitigate this is pre-planning, right? You got to pre-plan at a battleship because things happen slower, and you just need, you know, your guns to be pointed and loaded when you need them, right? So what I do is I will know what direction I'm going to be turning in, and I'll set my guns to be facing that way so that when I get out of the turn, the guns are ready to go, right? That is generally how I do it. Now, the second thing that can happen when you're maneuvering around like this, especially in a battleship, is that you become a fairly good target for the enemies to start focusing on. Especially if they happen to catch you in a turn and your citadel is exposed. Yeah, they can do a whole lot of damage to you, so you need to keep these things in mind. Yeah, I mean, I usually get fairly lucky with it in that I'm maneuvering around and I choose when to maneuver, right? So I'm behind cover and stuff like that, and I'm focusing, or I'm setting my guns to be pointed where I want them to point before I go into the turn. You know, it usually works out for me, but it doesn't always do that. So we've got A now. We managed to take A. The enemies are kind of pushing back. They're kind of in a retreat at this point in time. My allies have moved up with me, so I've got some good support here, especially right now, you know, now that we're dealing with these enemy ships that are getting closer to B, right? It's almost like they're trying to circle in around us to take out our whole little push down here at A. So it's really important to have the team support at this point in time to get this done, and it allows me the opportunity to, well, myself and this Cleveland, to circle around and come in behind the enemies. So they're trying to flank us, well, I'm going to try and flank them. Which works out pretty good. So we see the North Carolina off in the distance. We're going to put a full salvo into this guy immediately. Again, you know, luckily my guns were pointed the way I wanted them to be. There we go. Nice hit on the North Carolina. I got a citadel and did a whole bunch of damage. He's down to about a quarter health remaining, so that is not too bad at all. My Cleveland and the Cleveland and myself continue to push forward. We can see that there are destroyers in and around here, though, right? There's some torpedoes. Now the Cleveland just narrowly avoided them, so we need to keep the destroyer in mind. There we go. Destroyer just died. Fantastic. My allies were all over that, so that's excellent. The enemies, though, do still have the B and the C capture, so we need to start pushing up, right? Get another nice citadel on the North Carolina. Almost took him out, so he's almost gone. Ally finished him off. Excellent. One less battleship for us to deal with. Take a huge hit there from an enemy battleship, right? Brought me down to a little under half health, but luckily this is really the first significant amount of damage that I've taken, so I'm able to repair this without any real issues, so that's not too bad. We can see another Cleveland off in the distance, so we'll start putting shots into this guy. We do have another enemy battleship off in the distance, North Carolina. That's the same North Carolina that just did all that massive damage to me, so we're going to try and keep this guy in mind as well. Looking at the scores, we can see that it's not going so well for us right now, is it? The enemy has a significant lead on us. Now, even though they do have this lead, you know, things can obviously change, right? These points are very fluid. You can change the course of battle fairly quickly by, you know, taking points and taking out enemy ships. But for now, things aren't looking too great. I'm not having any of this. I don't want to be a part of this at all. So I am pushing into B, right? I've basically set a straight course. I'm going to B, I'm going to cap B. We're going to win this. That is what's going through my mind, right? I want that victory. In the meantime, we get lucky in that the enemies are retreating, basically, right? The North Carolina, the, I think it was Pensacola, and there's a Cleveland in there. Right there, they're pretty much in a retreat right now. If I can just take out this North Carolina, this will go a long way to help convince my team that it's safe enough for them to push. They won't scratch their paint, and they can come up here and help me out a little. Enemies off on either side of the ship, right? So I target on the starboard side with my secondary armaments. We can see the Pensacola over there. Not really a big threat because he doesn't have any torpedoes, so I'm not concerned about torpedoes, coming in at me. So basically just a time right now just to maneuver around, not expose a broadside to North Carolina behind me, but also maybe to get the kill on this ally here, or on this enemy here, because you can see he is putting pressure on some of my allies that are at A, specifically my aircraft carrier, right? Want to try and keep this guy alive. So there we go, we managed to take out the Pensacola. That's my first kill. Fantastic. Now we need to turn our ship around and we need to continue the push to B, right? We can't let up. There's not enough time right now. The enemy's 724 points at this time versus our 399. So we really need to push forward and cap B as quick as possible. In the meantime, we also need to take out as many enemy ships as we can. We can see the North Carolina off in the distance on very low health. Shots are coming in from myself and my allies managed to finish them off. Fantastic. And that was the last enemy battleship on the enemy team, so really good there. Now it's just a number of cruisers, right? There's still the Admiral Hipper way back there. We still have the Cleveland. There are several destroyers as well, and there's another cruiser lurking around here somewhere. So okay, we are now wide open to push into B, and once we have B, we need to take C. The points are such that I would just want to take all 3 points to make sure that this becomes a victory. Not looking to repeat the older failures of defeat that I had all this day. So lining up in the Admiral Hipper, hoping to be able to take out this target, because the Admiral Hipper is a fairly threatening target. I mean, the guns on the Admiral Hipper are pretty fantastic, and I wouldn't be surprised if the Admiral Hipper were to hit me, maybe get a citadel. Yes, it is possible, or at the very least just do a bunch of damage to me, right? So this is what I'm trying to avoid. Luckily we do have some cover coming up, so I'm going to be able to make use of this cover, so that's not too bad. We still do have an enemy destroyer down there in the south putting pressure on our A point, but we do have some ships down there to deal with it. We have another destroyer, there's a battleship down there, and our aircraft carrier. But again, you can see it even at this point in time, right? I know there's not that many allies left, but look. Most of the enemy ships are dead at this point, and my allies are still refusing to push forward and actually cap a base. I do have one cruiser behind me who is kind of supporting me, but that cruiser isn't actually in the cap zone to cap it. No, he has become distracted with the destroyer and is attempting to take out that destroyer. So it's all me at this point in time, and I'm not going to lose this. Too many losses today, right? It's just not going to happen. So I'm in here at B, capping B. I'm going to make use of the cover here, the mountains that are in front of me, because I know lurking out there is an Admiral Hipper and a Cleveland, and I didn't want them to start firing in on me, taking away my cap. What I've capped up so far, right, and just prolonging the cap at this point while they continue to earn points. Didn't want that to happen. So I was using the islands as cover as I can. You can see now that the B point is basically capped, right? There we go, capped. So now that this has taken place, I can just set a course, basically a straight course for C. Want to take C. Even though at this point, right, we do have the cap advantage, I'm not going to leave anything to chance here because there still are 2 enemy destroyers remaining. So for all I know, as soon as I leave B, an enemy destroyer will sneak in and cap it, and then we're exactly where we were when we left off. So not going to let this happen. Enemy Cleveland pops up. Okay, so we're going to start dealing with this guy. Now this enemy Cleveland wasn't necessarily dumb. And what I mean by that is he wasn't giving me full-on broadsides, which I found fairly surprising. Maybe it's just because I'm used to playing, maybe not against the most intelligent people, especially in the random battles like this. But I found it surprising. I figured that this guy would have, not maybe maneuvered as well and would have given me the full broadside. So here we go. This is really how the Cleveland is going to fight me this whole time, right? Sort of angled. It's not a full broadside, right? We're not parallel to each other. But I do still have the opportunity to do some significant damage, just considering, the caliber of the guns on the Amagi versus the armor on the Cleveland, right? It doesn't really matter where my shells hit. They're still going to do significant damage. I was just hoping for some quick citadel hits, right, to get the Cleveland gone as quick as possible, so that he would be dead when I start capping C. That is the plan. But again, Cleveland remains sort of angled, right? Sort of angled, turning out of the shots as I fire them, which is really good. It's not working out for him in this case, because I was actually compensating for it, because I knew what he was doing. You can see it, right? He's not fully broadside against me. He's at a slight angle, waiting for me to fire. Once I fire, he is then going to turn out of the shots, and they're going to miss. So all you have to do to make sure that you hit at least a few shots is just aim a little above the target, where you would normally aim if the target wasn't changing course. That's all you have to do. Fairly simple. Anyway, torpedo bombers and dive bombers came in. Torpedo bombers missed all their torpedoes, thankfully, and in the meantime I was able to I was hit by the dive bombers. Cleveland does decide to go full broadside to me now, and there we go. Did a bunch of damage to him, fantastic. Managed to earn myself the high caliber as well. You can see that Cleveland is more concerned with the turrets behind him than he is with me at this point in time. So that is pretty fantastic, working out well for me. There we go. We now have C. The Cleveland is gone, the Admiral Hipper is gone. It's just the aircraft carrier and 2 enemy destroyers. So we should have this now. We should have it. We finally have the points, or the lead in points as well. The enemies have no base captures at all, so they're not going to be able to actually, accrue any points at this point unless they take a base or kill one of us. So that's not going to happen. We're not going to let that happen. There's the enemy aircraft carrier. Off in the distance, one of my allies actually just a few seconds ago took a shot off at me. Not sure what that is. And I get a little bit of recognition there in chat as well from one of my teammates, noting that without me, they would have lost this battle. Very true. Very, very true. So there we go, the enemy Regio, I think it's called, a tier 6 Japanese carrier. Off in the distance, right, he is facing down against myself and my allied turrets. Turret shots go in, finish him off, battle over. Fantastic, and we finally got the victory. Anyway, that wasn't too bad at all. We'll take a look at the results. 285,000 credits, 6,900 experience. I did get the 1 kill in the high caliber, few citadels. It's the base captures that really attribute to the amount of points I got here. Over 2,000 base experience, so that is not too bad at all. And in terms of damage done, I think it's about 118,000 damage done with my armor piercing shots. Also, not too bad at all. But it just goes to show you can only push me so far. Then I'm going to take matters into my own hands and get a victory. Anyway, do hope you guys enjoyed today's video. As always, leave any comments you have for me in the video comment section below. Love reading those and responding back to them. Hit the old like button if you did like today's video. Hit subscribe if you are not a subscriber. And as always, I do hope you enjoy the rest of your day.